All right, I'm all ready to be learned.
You ready to be learned?
All
right, but
yes.
before I learn
This is
you,
fucking weird. You're teaching me about superhero shit today.
yeah, I know it's fucking strange. Which actually, before we do that, I need you to enlighten me about something.
Happily.
What's the weirdest, just goofiest fucking thing you've ever seen the Justice League do?
Ooh, I guess I'll admit this right off the top. I've never been a huge fan of the Justice League.
Holy shit!
Yeah, I tend to.
Oh my god!
Prefer to read the individual superheroes.
Okay.
There's also this entire middle chunk where only the goofiest fucking heroes were the Justice League.
Like who?
So remember in the 2000s we had the cartoon that was Justice League?
Yeah, like based on like all the Paul Dini stuff and everything, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
So for a while, the mainstay heroes like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, they weren't in the Justice League.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it was actually Grant Morrison who brought them all back together for Justice League.
I have to thank you. I did not have any Grant Morrison references to bring up here.
I was like, they will absolutely show up in this because they wrote a really long run that inspired the show. The cartoon.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, see there, you've taught me something already. Grant Morrison was the inspiration behind the successful Justice League cartoon in the 2000s. Okay.
Prior to that, however, the team consisted of a character like Elongated Man or Blue Beetle or Booster Gold.
I'm aware of Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. I did not know they were actually members of the Justice League.
They were the Justice League.
That's silly.
Yeah.
That's really goddamn silly.
So it's not necessarily silly what they did, but there is a moment where Guy Gardner, who was a Green Lantern,
yes,
known for his gorgeous red bowl cut and smarmy attitude, was being such a prick that Batman cold cocks him.
Good.
And that's pretty much everyone's consensus on the subject. Because Batman's like, I'm going to go be Batman, but I'm going to put you guys together kind of like, here's how you Justice League, and then throw you into the deep end.
Okay, have fun.
But before he does that, he makes sure to cool cock Guy Gardner.
Have fun, kids, by the way.
Yep, pretty much. Don't be a dick.
Way to go, Bruce. Grade A superhero parenting.
But I mean, individually, I could tell you all kinds of stories, but as a group, I don't know.
All right, well, you're going to learn a pretty interesting story, and dare say, a fascinatingly goofy one. Hey, everybody. Welcome to DeRazzled, the show where we take award-winning worst films and fix them, except for the days where we dip our toes into, I guess, what can be considered development hell. This is a different take on development hell. I'll get into why in a little bit.
Okay.
My name's Joe Nealis, and with me, as always, is also host Jack Culbertson. Thank you for joining us, everyone. If you have listened to our show before, if you like what you hear today, please go and review, rate the show everywhere you possibly can so we can get into more people's ears. We'd greatly appreciate that. Today, thanks to a recommendation from fellow podcaster Raphael Moran of the Geeky Dad podcast, without him bringing this up, I would have no idea this existed. We're talking about a little movie called Justice League Mortal.
We sure are. The thing that I really love about this is a really nice kind of like spiritual sequel to our Superman Lives coverage. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, because I mean, just chronologically, the way history works, like we ended that kind of talking about Superman Returns for a minute, and that's kind of where we're going to be starting here today. What do you remember about the actual reception of Superman Returns?
It was fairly negative.
Fairly negative.
It wasn't like outright a bomb, but people don't really connect with it.
There were definitely things that got praised. Like I know that unfortunately, Kevin Spacey was hailed as just like the ideal Lex Luthor at the time.
He was pretty fun.
Yeah, I know.
He wasn't great.
None of it was great. Yeah, but there were. He was.
I like the condom suit personally.
I did not mind the suit personally either. I actually even kind of liked Brandon Routh's Superman to it. Yeah,
he was fine.
Yeah, he was fine.
You couldn't get Christopher Reeves, which is what Bryan Singer wanted.
That would have been what he wanted, absolutely. Do you know what the stats on Superman Returns are?
Oh, geez, no. Don't.
Okay, take a guess at the tomato meter.
I'm going to guess 68.
74, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it wasn't as hated as you might expect. It's even certified fresh, actually, according to Rotten Tomatoes standards. Given it's 2023, and I don't know how much that has changed with
Right.
retroactive reviews or any kind of reappraisal that may have taken place, but there it is. What about the audience score?
I'm going to say 73.
61.
Ah, okay.
How about IMDb?
6.4 out of 10.
You're so close.
Damn.
6.1.
Yeah, that's about right.
But that wasn't the only big superhero movie to come out around this time. So that came out in 2006, but the
Clerks 2.
Right, Clerks 2. Classic superhero.
Right.
But the year before Superman Returns, we got Batman Begins.
Oh, yeah.
The beginning of the Nolanverse, and that shook off the stale, bad taste of the Schumacher Bat films. What do you think the stats on Batman Begins are?
IMDb, I'm going to say like a 8.1 out of 10.
8.2 IMDb, actually. Okay. So yeah, very close.
Tomato meter, I'm going to go with 87.
84, very close. Audience score.
Oh, God, it could go either way. I'm going to go a little lower. I think they went 78.
94.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which honestly, I'm not surprised. Like Batman Begins is such a fucking solid movie.
Yeah. It still has a little bit of the like cheesy tongue-in-cheek superhero shit.
I kind of like that about it, though. Like the way that's kind of integrated into that grittier, more grounded world is fascinating to me. Especially with like Cillian Murphy's take on Scarecrow. Like it's just...
To me, it's like some of the dialogue shit.
Some of the dialogue is not as good as future Nolanverse films, sure, but I think it's a solid foundation on which to build. And
absolutely.
History bore that out. So having this kind of response, even to a film that wasn't quite as satisfying as Superman Returns, had Warner Brothers, entertaining the idea of a Justice League movie. As we know from our Superman Lives coverage, they'd already been kind of kicking around Batman versus Superman ideas in the background anyway, before they, tried to throw all that money behind that weird J.J. Abrams idea for a Superman series.
Check out our previous episodes on Superman Lives.
Listen to the Superman Lives series if you haven't already. That whole we touch on what some of that was going to be, and my God, it's ridiculous.
Joe did his homework for that series.
I did so much fucking homework for that series, and I did more for this one. Well, not more than that one. You know what I mean,
right?
So we're just gonna jump in here to how things got started. So at the time, the plans for like non-Batman films were nebulous at best. Like there were inklings of maybe doing a sequel to Superman Returns. I think there was like a plan to release one around 2009. And there were like rumblings of Flash and Wonder Woman, but like no real development news until they decided, knowing what they knew about what was happening with these new movies, to just take a big swing. There was no MCU yet. They probably had some rumblings that Iron Man was in the works. I think Hulk had maybe released or had finished production or something. I forget exactly. But they decided to go forward and just jump right in and figure, why not try a Justice League movie? We'll try something fresh. We'll try something unique. So they went out and they found some screenwriters to try and wrangle this team up of all team ups. Who do you think they got to write this script?
He was a notable writer.
They were known. They were particularly at the time. They've done more work since then. They're not the best known screenwriters.
Okay, because my instant guess was going to be David Goyer, who had co-written the Nolan Batmans.
That I think would have been great.
He's very hit and miss.
He can be. That's fair.
Like extremely, like either fucking crushes it or fucking sucks.
Yeah. It was not Goyer though.
I don't know.
It was Kieran and Michelle Mulroney.
Those two.
At the time, they had Warner Brothers' attention because they rewrote the script for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the 2005 Brad Pitt,
Erotica.
Angelina Jolie, accidental home wrecking slash meet cute that they
it was great.
with guns that they had put together. It is credited as being a Simon Kinberg script, but they fixed it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The Mulroneys here rewrote that and thus had Warner Brothers ears. So they were tapped to do this, and they were eager to jump in and just get right to it. So they immediately started trying to find a director. The first person they had in mind was Jason Reitman. At the time, he was best known for Thank You for Smoking and Juno.
That's such a weird pick.
It's a weird pick at that point in time. And he turned it down right away, lest his indie bona fides be sullied by a blockbuster. As a reminder, the sequel that he wrote to Ghostbusters Afterlife is in the works and coming out at the end of this year.
Yeah.
And he did direct the first Ghostbusters Afterlife. So he's not exactly shy about doing blockbusters anymore.
Nah, he did a bunch of indie stuff. He's good.
He's got his cred. It's fine. I really did like Thank You for Smoking.
That was great.
Yeah. I mean, I just love Aaron Eckhart.
It's one of my flu movies.
Really?
Remember the Winter of Horrible Flu, where I watched a bunch of movies?
Yeah. Thank You for Smoking was one of
It
those.
was one of them. I
shit.
didn't remember it all, but I remember liking it.
It's very good.
I've seen it since then. It's great.
I need to rewatch it. It's been quite some time. So naturally, Reitman didn't accept this particular job, so they went to their second choice, George Miller. You know, the guy who is known for Mad Max, and more recently at that particular point of time, Happy Feet.
He sure was.
You know, the Oscar-winning Best Animated Feature that is a jukebox musical featuring the voices of Elijah Wood, Robin Williams, Brittany Murphy, Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, rapper Fat Joe, and Steve the Crocodile Hunter Irwin as adorable dancing penguins and such.
That cast is really sad now.
I know. Yeah.
Fuck.
I completely forgot that the fucking Crocodile Hunter was in that movie.
He was huge.
I know. I loved him so much.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, God. So Miller was super excited to jump in and do something different, doing something on this scale and with this kind of toolbox that he's getting from DC with these characters and this lore and whatnot. Would have been a lot of fun. Barry Osborne was brought on to produce. Merritt Allen was hired as a costume designer, but unfortunately she died in November of 2007, so Weta Workshop filled in for her.
Remind me what a workshop. It sounds familiar.
Weta Workshop is one of the most noteworthy visual effects studios outside of ILM. It's owned by Peter Jackson, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And actually, I'm going to send you a link here that I want you to look at. This is courtesy of the Canceled Movie Report podcast, which was also one of my sources for Superman Lives. So they are an Australian-based podcast that tackles this kind of thing. And this is a link that I'm sending Jack right now. I'll have it in the show notes as well, to their blog that has a bunch of the concept art and costume tests.
Okay. Yeah, you were mentioning something about a drawing.
Oh, you'll know exactly which one I'm talking about as soon as you see it. So you can see here, there's several, I'm not going to mention any specific cast just yet because we're about to get to that, but you can see very clearly a camera test for what was going to be their Wonder Woman.
I like it.
Yeah, I really like the look for Wonder Woman. She's like missing kind of like the eagle on her bodice, but aside from that, looks excellent. It's really not that far off from what we ended up seeing in the Snyderverse with Gal Gadot. We've also got several different looks here at Batman, Superman, The Flash,
Yeah, we do.
Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and Green Lantern.
Ew.
What was that? Ew.
The Batman mask looks limp. Like a
Oh yeah, the one that's like kind of just hanging there. Yeah, their take on Batman is maybe the wildest thing about any of this costume design. There is literally chainmail built into parts of this. You can see it in that particular picture of the cowl that Jack just mentioned. There's also reference in interviews with the actor who was going to play him that we'll bring up in a moment, about there being like pistons and all sorts of other kind of nonsense, and there being like a big collar up on it.
It's like some of these I'm totally cool with, and then other ones I'm like, what the?
I do want to point out that the Superman one looks like it was taken from a Spirit Halloween.
It really
like,
does. It's really,
costume
really
bag.
bad.
Like it's so plain. It's just Like, it's fine.
Plain and cheap.
It looks cheap, though. That's part of the problem. And given, as we learned from Superman Lives and the Nick Cage pictures, this could just be like bad lighting. This could be but then again, it looks like it is a well lit white room.
Yeah,
where he is
it's
cognizant
a pretty
and posing.
Clear and crisp image, and it looks like so he doesn't have his red underpants.
They did not do the underpants over the pants.
However, it does look like he's wearing a diaper underneath.
It kind of does. Yeah.
I wonder if they were afraid of his penis.
They might have been. Movies tend to be afraid of penises, and
Just
filmmakers are cowards for that.
Just
see our coverage of Caligula.
Yep.
There's also some of the mask that they were going to use for Martian Manhunter.
It's terrifying.
It's pretty horrific. Yes. You get a look at Aquaman. You get again, very plain kind of concept art for Green Lantern, for Flash. There's a number of different things here. There's also some concept art of a number of different scenes in there. Feel free to take a look at that and peruse that. It's very interesting stuff.
But as I'm looking at this, I am not currently gagging.
Sure,
there's some stuff I don't like, but
there's some stuff that I think they kind of pulled punches on, but overall, yeah, it looks fine.
Yeah,
I am kind of curious about what all the pistons and weirdness is with Batman's suit. They really went out of their way to make Batman way different from everyone else.
The Batman costume is awful.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
I don't like it.
He has a bunch of pouches and chainmail. And the nose piece doesn't cover his whole nose. So that's...
No, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it looks stupid.
Yeah. It's not great. So reportedly the budget for this movie was going to be around $300 million. And about 8 months after the announcement of the project, the casting started to really pick up. So now we're going to start talking about who was first considered for this and who ended up being cast in this film. I'm going to talk a little bit about what these actors were best known for at the time.
Okay.
They very clearly have gone on to do other things since then. In one case, we'll talk about it. But I do want to point out up front, there was pretty much no attempt to retain either Brandon Routh or Christian Bale in their respective roles. They weren't even offered.
Okay.
Some of the actors that were considered for various roles include Joseph Cross, who at the time was known for roles in Strangers with Candy and Running with Scissors. Michael Angarano, who was in Almost Famous when he was younger, and then more recently to this time, Sky High. Max Theriot, who was in The Pacifier and Nancy Drew. Minka Kelly, who was in The Pumpkin Carver and The Kingdom. Adrienne Palicki from the Friday Night Lights television series, Scott Porter from Music and Lyrics, Jessica Biel from Seventh Heaven and The Illusionist, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead from Death Proof and Live Free or Die Hard. And coming up soon, the really excellent, really cool Scott Pilgrim anime that they announced. So I can't fucking wait.
That is an interesting collection of actors.
You can tell already just from that list, especially when you look at Jessica Biel at the time. Mm-hmm. This is, again, 2007. They're going for a much younger cast for this. The idea was that they wanted the actors to age into these roles so they can reprise them for years across movie after movie. So what they ended up going for instead of any of those people was DJ Cotrona for Superman. He was known at the time for a movie called Venom, not completely unrelated to any Marvel property to my knowledge. It came out in 2005, and a TV series called Windfall. Armie Hammer as Batman.
Oh, who's he?
Who's he? Well, at the time, he was best known for the movie Flicka, and single episode appearances on Arrested Development, Veronica Mars, and Desperate Housewives.
Man, I'm glad he never went anywhere.
I know, right? Obviously, at this point in time, we all know that Armie Hammer was accused of some sexual misconduct, possibly leading into cannibalism, though he denies some of that.
I was just wondering if this is the first time we've brought up cannibalism on our show.
It might be, which is weird, considering you as a person and also me as a person.
Anyway.
As Wonder Woman, we have Australian supermodel Megan Gale, who was also in the film Stealth. Another Australian actress, Teresa Palmer, known from The Grudge 2 and December Boys, was going to play Talia al Ghul.
Okay.
Which honestly was a pull that I was not expecting. As you may have noticed from the concept art, our Green Lantern this time is Jon Stewart, who was going to be played by rapper Common, also known at that time from his role in Smokin' Aces, which is a fantastic action film if you have not seen that.
I'm actually okay with that casting.
Yeah, I actually really like that personally. Mild spoiler, I wish they did more with him.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. This one I found really interesting too. Speaking of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this actor who was playing Barry Allen / The Flash was in this movie, as well as in The Land of Women, and possibly best known for his role as one of the main characters in The O.C., Adam Brody.
Huh. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I kind of dig it.
Actually, yeah.
I kind of dig that casting. He's fun. And right alongside him, we're actually getting 2 Flashes for the price of 1 on this one.
We're getting Barry and Wally?
We're getting Wally, yeah. Wally West, played by Anton Yelchin.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Right?
That's pretty good,
I wish we could have seen that. Like, this is not long after he had done Charlie Bartlett as well. So, this is a good time for him to be like a young, kid Flash. Moving on, we also had Santiago Cabrera, who is actually British. I was not familiar with anything that he was in, with the exception of Heroes. He actually did make an appearance in several episodes of Heroes. I forget his who. He was also in Love and Other Disasters, and in this he was going to be our Aquaman.
Okay.
Possibly the most Australian person on this entire cast, Hugh Keys-Byrne, who you may know from Mad Max. Do you know what role he played in Mad Max?
I do not.
He played Toe Cutter Joe.
It's been a minute since I've watched. Are we talking about the original?
I'm talking about the original Mad Max, yeah. He played Toe Cutter Joe in the original Mad Max, and then later on circled back around and played Immortan Joe in Mad Max Fury Road.
I know. I knew there was an actor that George Miller liked to continue to work with.
It's Hugh Keys-Byrne.
What the fuck was he going to play? Who was he going to play?
Martian Manhunter.
Okay.
He is both the most Australian and the oldest person on this cast by a mile. Yeah, he was going to be the one in all the prosthesis for Martian Manhunter. And possibly the most interesting casting choice out of everyone here is the main villain of the film. So the villain they chose for this was going to be Maxwell Lord.
Lame.
Who I learned appeared in Justice League #1. So I can see why they would go with that particular poll just for history's sake. The actor they chose was very interesting, though. At the time, he was known for his role on MTV's Undeclared and the Seth Rogen vehicle Knocked Up, Jay Baruchel.
What the fuck?
Jay Baruchel was going to be the villain of this film.
Are you sure?
Yes, and he was super fucking excited to do it.
He would.
There's an interview that I listened to with him on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, where he is just gushing about what this movie was going to be. It's a very entertaining listen. Also, just to listen to him talk about other things besides that. Just a fun guy in general. There were some additional unconfirmed casting, or some names I had heard tossed around but not actually listed anywhere. Zoe Kazan was allegedly going to be playing Iris West, who I'm not sure if that's... I think
it's Barry's wife.
Barry's wife. Mm-hmm. Okay, she does play a prominent role in the story, kind of. And Stephen Tobolowsky was supposedly going to be playing Alfred Pennyworth.
Okay. It would be weird to not have Alfred in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, no, there has to be an Alfred. You have a Batman, there has to be an Alfred. That's silly if there's not. Most of the characters are going to be portrayed, or were supposed to be portrayed, about as you would expect them to be. As you can see from a lot of the concept art, very comic book faithful for the most part. Yeah. The difference is Batman, as we've mentioned. He looks way different than everyone else, and Armie Hammer particularly points out in interviews that this version of Batman was meant to be psychotic. Paranoid and psychotic.
Why'd they cast him then?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. Though it does raise another question, because, again, they're going for a very young cast here. Armie Hammer was 19 years old in 2007.
Shit, really?
Yes.
And already filthy rich.
Fuck my life.
For those who can't see the image, it's kind of like vaguely Punisher-esque mixed with way too much chainmail and a little bit of like a military vibe.
It makes me wonder if they were going for like some kind of like low-key steampunk thing, because like the mention of like pistons and valves and shit is very strange to me. And especially in light of like the very clear chainmail aesthetic, and like there are parts of it look like they're spray painted.
Honestly, it's the most George Miller outfit of all of them.
Honestly, yeah, I could see this Batman popping up in the world of Mad Max.
Oh, that'd be a hell of a crossover.
I know, right? That actually would be kind of cool. Before we take a break, I do want to point out one thing about the film's tone, which I got this from an interview with Adam Brody. He described the movie as being more like a Transformers movie than a superhero movie.
Like the Michael Bay Transformer movies?
I don't think he meant like like any movie property of the Transformers. I think he meant more like just the idea of Transformers. Though it's hard to gauge. Robots in disguise. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Okay.
And I'm going to let you mull on that while we go and take a quick break.
I was more of a Beast Wars person myself.
You're a Beast Wars person?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I was never really into either of them. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to jump into the story of this film, because there were completed drafts of the script. I have no idea where in the development process this particular version was. There's plenty of reason to be confused about that, which we'll touch on later. This version I got from the Canceled Movie Report podcast. This was going to be, I think, their pilot episode, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not going to cover the story quite as in depth as they do. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to highlight a number of the more noteworthy parts of the story. You're still going to get like the linear sense of how it was going to play out, but you'll see I'm taking some liberties here and there. If you want a more thorough examination of this story, go listen to the Canceled Movie Report's 2-parter on it. They did a fantastic job. There's even some like voice acted, like audio drama versions of the script mixed in there as well, where they were also faithful to the actors' nationalities. Like anyone who was Australian is Australian. Anyone who was British is British, so on and so forth. So this script was largely based off of the Justice League Tower of Babel arc, written by Mark Waid and Howard Porter. Mm-hmm. Which I believe was an early 2000s Justice League story, if I'm not mistaken.
It's right in the middle of Morrison's run.
Right in the middle of Morrison's run. Okay, there we go. We open up with the Justice League minus Batman attending somebody's funeral in all black versions of their costumes. Gee, I wonder who could be in that casket.
I was just thinking, who's the tailor who had to make all these fucking black versions of their costumes?
Oh, Alfred, clearly.
It was Alfred.
It had to be Alfred, yeah. Unless there's like, did they ever cover that in the DC universe? Like, is there like a superhero tailor like in the Venture Brothers?
There's definitely one in the Marvel universe. I think there's several in the Marvel universe.
I mean, there has to be, right? Like,
I would imagine so.
So they all have such stylish suits. They all have very particular needs.
I think, at least for Superman, his mom did it. He would have his mom sew.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Oh, Martha.
Martha can't.
Oh. 2 days earlier, the world is at peace.
Mm-hmm.
Batman monitors the rest of the Justice League through his Brother Eye satellite network. It's a dumb name for a satellite. The
system accurate.
I know. I am aware of that. You'll notice a lot of this is comic book accurate.
Okay.
The system through which he spies on demigods and catalogs their weaknesses, just in case they get all evil or whatever. As Alfred pulls Batman away for Bruce Wayne's surprise birthday party, someone hacks into Brother Eye and pinpoints Martian Manhunter's location. A series of bizarre events attract the various members of the Justice League to handle crime after crime. Things come to a head when a strange seahorse sets fire to Martian Manhunter, who is luckily saved by Wonder Woman and the Flash.
Fucking horses, man.
Yeah, fucking seahorses this time. Even they're just taking over every inch of the earth. The latter here, the Flash, had been having a nice lunch with his wife at Planet Krypton, where he casually drooled over Wonder Woman. in front of his wife.
Barry wouldn't do that. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Not entirely comic book accurate. Concerned, Superman goes to Atlantis to get Aquaman to come to the surface and try to help them figure out what the fuck's with this seahorse, man. Right. Aquaman refuses at first because apparently in his efforts to protect the surface dwellers from peril, he had lost his hand and has now been replaced with a prosthetic water hand.
Yeah.
But when Superman mentions Wonder Woman wants him to come up, Aquaman relents.
Everyone's thirsty for Wonder Woman.
Apparently,
Okay.
yeah. Everyone's hot for Wonder Woman in this movie. It's weird. It's a little strange. Then when he comes up to the surface, he gets bit by a robot mosquito that somehow makes him afraid of water, causing him to toss away his water hand. The water hand then somehow ends up covering Martian Manhunter, which at least protects him from the weird seahorse fire.
He got rabies?
It is a symptom of rabies. Thank you. That was my immediate thought was like, what, he just got fucking rabies from a mosquito? No, there's a different reason for this happens, I think. Though
I like mine better.
Yeah, I also like that better. It's like he suddenly came down with rabies. Green Lantern is an architect for his day job and accidentally swallows a foreign object that was stuck to the end of his pencil, which he jammed into his mouth as you're wont to do. He goes blind, causing the construct he was using to model a project he was working on to just go haywire and wreck shit.
Okay.
That's Green Lantern's intro, everybody. Batman misses all of this because Bruce Wayne had to throw a party. Maxwell Lord is in attendance and says some cryptic shit about how his Planet Krypton restaurants have served millions in Gotham alone, punctuated by his business partner Talia al Ghul's appearance. But before Bruce can do anything about this, Alfred informs him of the Martian Manhunter situation. On his way to investigate, he's accosted by bikers who turn into strange robotic entities that are remnants of the defunct OMAC project. When Batman tries to access his Brother Eye's surveillance network, he finds he has been locked out and has lost control. I think I may have gotten a detail slightly wrong there. I don't know if he was actually on his way to investigate the Martian Manhunter thing. Mm-hmm. I think he does run into a bunch of bikers who are like accosting some cops, and then he goes and does a billionaire thing and saves the cops. Yeah. So and one of the bikers turns into an OMAC, which I don't know what the fuck OMAC means. I tried to look it up, and I got like 3 different definitions.
It's a Kirby creation.
I'm not surprised. It's either Omni Mind and Community, Observational Metahuman Activity Construct, or One-Man Army Corps.
I think it was originally One-Man Army Corps, and then because that's silly, they changed it.
It is silly. To be fair, it's all silly. They're all fucking silly things for this initialism. Okay, the League minus Batman retreat to the Fortress of Solitude to figure shit out, at least until Batman does show up, and when questioned how he knew how they were there, is forced to explain that he's been surveilling all of them, but that he's lost control of the system. Almost immediately, Barry gets a phone call from his wife, which somehow causes a nanobot to be implanted on him. Like, it pops out of the phone and ends up on him and, like, implants itself in him, causing him to vibrate at such a high and strange frequency that he starts repeatedly vibrating through the entire planet from one side to the other, just back and forth and back and forth.
That's rough.
I think he has to get lassoed by Wonder Woman, which I'm sure he's just thrilled with.
Given the origins of Wonder Woman, it makes sense.
Yeah, fair. After a prolonged series of scenes where these bizarre maladies are addressed, including Martian Manhunter, I'm going to have to walk you through this. This is probably the most ridiculous thing that happens in the entire goddamn movie, including Martian Manhunter telepathically guiding a blind Green Lantern through surgery to remove the nano thing from the Flash and to fix whatever is up with Aquaman. And then somehow removes the water hand from Martian Manhunter, which somehow fixes Green Lantern's vision. It's just like this cascading chain reaction of just fixing problems.
Fixing the B-plots. Okay.
Yeah, basically. So after all of that, Batman, in trying to get back into the Brother Eye system, learns that his weakness is love. And has a flashback where he realizes that the last time Talia kissed him, she caused him to swallow a tracking device, in keeping with the Guild of Calamitous Intent villainous dating standards.
It's very comic booky.
Yeah, it's very silly. And they pointed this out on the Canceled Movie Review podcast. How did he not just pass it? How did he not shit that out?
Yeah.
And B, How is he not? He's Batman. If he's that
chewing gum, it got stuck in his colon.
Oh, so he stays there for 7 years,
Right.
like they say in the comic books. But also, like, if he's that fucking paranoid, why isn't he like scanning his body for like tracking devices and shit?
Yeah, he probably is.
He probably is. So either this is some real high tech shit that's undetectable, or this Batman's an idiot.
Or it's made out of meat. So when he scans himself,
oh man, it's a meat tracker.
Right.
Oh no.
We could be supervillains.
We've watched enough Venture Brothers. We know how it works. We understand the business.
What are those like hors d'oeuvres that are wrapped in bacon?
Pigs in a blanket?
Yeah, we could do that with like a tracker, put bacon around it.
Or bacon wrapped scallops.
Yeah, those are both good. Just put the tracker, wrap it in bacon.
Yeah, you could wrap it in bacon.
Although I feel like Batman might notice if he's being tongue past a piece of bacon.
What if that's his thing? Though?
It could be.
What if
thing?
Yeah.
Then...
What if he just really likes that? Like he just watches.
I was feeling hungry.
Can you tie a knot first? Oh God! Just imagine just the mechanics of trying to tie a slice of bacon into a knot with your tongue.
Comic book accurate.
Jesus Christ. Anyway. During a weird scene where Barry eats a shit ton of food and mansplains why people sexually objectify Wonder Woman to Wonder Woman, Wally pops up and uses his newfangled iPhone to do some rapid research based on what they know, and comes across information linking Maxwell Lord to the OMAC project and also teeing up all of his telepathic abilities. This movie's extremely exposition heavy and extremely based on convenience for the characters at particular moments. Wonder Woman goes to confront Lord, who reveals his evil plan to turn everyone into OMACs by lacing the burgers at his Planet Krypton restaurant chain with nanotech.
Wrapping it in meat.
Wrapping it in meat. You
called it.
You called it. You called it right there. You saw through the whole facade. Talia was just testing out the meat wrapping techniques on Batman.
Right.
But unfortunately for her, Superman happens to get a little bit too close in proximity, allowing Lord the opportunity to take over his mind and sick him on Wonder Woman. So you know how when Maxwell Lord uses his powers, he gets a nosebleed?
Sure.
Jay Baruchel had a suggestion for this particular moment that I kind of wish we had gotten to see. So because he's taking over a Kryptonian mind, it's extremely fucking difficult. Mm-hmm. So instead of just bleeding from his nose, Baruchel went to Miller and said, I want to bleed out of every orifice of my head.
Okay, I mean...
And Miller loved it.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's extremely gruesome, but I think it fits the severity of that particular moment, right?
Did they not do it?
The movie, the movie didn't come out, Jack.
You haven't watched it?
No. You know, in all my research, I did fuck up and not watch the film that didn't get made.
That's where you went wrong.
That's where I went wrong. I made a huge mistake. Batman appears and fails to distract Superman, but after throwing Wonder Woman into a river, he gets effectively distracted by Aquaman, who is waiting with an army of sea creatures, allowing Wonder Woman to escape back to Lord and lasso him. He reveals that the only way to free Superman of his control is to kill him. She lifts her lasso to his throat, but before she can decide to finish the job, Batman drops down from the rafters, out of the shadows, and snaps Maxwell Lord's neck. Batman done did a murder. Lord happened to also have Talia al Ghul there held captive and hooked up to a computer for reasons, allowing him to transfer his consciousness into her at the moment of his death. Talia Lord then triggers the next phase of their plan, turning the millions upon millions of Planet Krypton customers into OMACs. Batman tries to save her, but she dies, causing Lord's consciousness to seek another host. At this point, the rest of the Justice League has rejoined them for this big final battle against a ton of newly created OMAC monster machines, and Lord's consciousness somehow ends up landing in Barry Allen, turning him into an alpha OMAC, but not completely eliminating his consciousness.
Okay.
You had a thought?
It's dumb. That's the thought I had.
Fair enough. Barry realizes that he can use the Speed Force to run fast enough to create a cosmic light wall that he can run headlong into, sacrificing himself to kill Lord faster than he can react. Despite spending like half of this movie drooling over Wonder Woman, he takes a quick detour in the middle of this running around to see his wife one last time and say goodbye. Even though she can't see him or hear him, and it kind of makes things creepy, especially with all the Wonder Woman drooling that took place earlier. Just, it feels a little disingenuous. But
why didn't they just have Wally be the horny teenager? If Wally's there...
I mean, it would have been a little. I mean, it would have been weird, but it would have at least been like.
Oh, yeah, he's
non-adulterous.
He's pretty young at that point.
He's pretty young at that point. Though he also does get a little bit drooly over Wonder Woman at a moment, like before he does all the like the iPhone research thing, or tells him about his iPhone research. Whatever. So as it turns out, it's Barry in that casket. And Batman is actually just kind of standing alone near an outcropping of trees, just kind of like smirking. He's just like kind of too cool to be there with everyone else at the funeral.
That tracks for Batman.
Yeah. After the funeral, the heroes vote to work together, including Wally. Batman tries to say that he doesn't belong because he's just a guy and doesn't have fancy powers, but Supes pats him on the back and tells him to shut his goth ass up and get with the program. All is well for like 5 seconds before Wally notices some strange readings coming from a console. Turns out it's monitoring readings from outer space, and there's a massive starfish creature careening toward Earth. Our intrepid heroes prepare to defend the planet in space.
And we did finally get that villain.
Yeah, they believe it or not, in fucking 2007 or 2008, they were gonna tease Starro for a Justice League sequel, and we didn't end up seeing him until Suicide Squad,
which I saw a lot of people bitch about, but I loved it.
I thought it was great. Like, why is anyone mad about that?
Did they watch the rest of the movie? It's perfect for the tone.
It's perfect for good lord. Like, tonally, it's great. Visually, it's impressive. They do a lot of cool shit with it. What's not to like?
Remind me what year they were working on this.
So, they began everything in 2007.
Okay. Because the part where... It does very much sound like it was based on Tower of Babylon?
Tower of Babel. Babel, whatever.
Which... Man, I've been meaning to read that one for so long, so I'm kind of pissed that I haven't. It's pretty well loved story. However, there is a comic where Wonder Woman snaps Max Lord's neck.
Oh, she does kill him in the books.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Remember when I was telling you that the big three took like a vacay?
Yeah. Is that why?
I think that's why she's like,
she was kind of coping with the fact that
she
she actually killed a dude.
Yeah, she snaps his neck.
Yeah, the way this plays out in this one is like it seems like she's about to, but then she kind of lets the rope go limp, and she's kind of looks away, like she just can't bring herself to do it. And he's kind of taunting her about it the whole time as well. Like, he knows she won't do it. But then Batman, the guy with a fucking no kill code or whatever, leaps out of the shadows and does it himself.
The movies are so bad at that.
It's weird, right? Because like we see Ben Affleck's Batman also just straight up murder a guy, at least one or two guys.
Single shit.
No, not at all.
Rob Pat hasn't killed anybody yet, right?
No, he definitely didn't. They were careful about that in the Batman, I think.
So I just sent you a link to the image of Wonder Woman killing Max Lord.
I am pulling that up now.
There's a Batman villain called...
Oh, man!
Yeah, she kills him real good.
Oh, okay. God damn it. So my browser decided to do one of those things where it suddenly takes me away to like, hey, you've won an Apple iPhone, whatever. Like,
nice.
Yeah. I saw the image. That's the important thing.
Yeah. There's a Batman villain called Maxie Zeus.
Oh, I'm aware.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Maxie Zeus.
So my brain keeps trying to combine them. They're both dickheads.
Zeusy Lord.
Lordy
Zeus.
I like that the best. Yeah. Oh, well. I mean, I don't know that I hate that more than what we got.
I mean, that's a fair question, right? Like, is this worse than what we got from Zack Snyder / Joss Whedon?
I hate what they did with Batman.
Yes.
Not him being a dickhead who spies on his teammates. That's
par for the course. We all know the maxim that Batman has a contingency for everything, including himself and everyone else in the Justice League. Like, we know.
Yeah, it's almost obnoxious at this point how often they bring it up.
One of the things that I didn't bring up in this series of scenes was when he reveals that he has been spying on everybody and that he's lost control of the thing. One of the questions he gets repeatedly asked is, "Well, where is it? Why can't you just turn it off?" And it's just him saying, "I don't know," over and over and over again, because he hid it even from himself.
Yeah.
It's the most cheesiest Batman-ass answer to that question.
Well, that is certainly a script.
It sure was. However, as we well know, this movie did not get made. And there are several reasons for that, but before that, we're going to take a quick break. Welcome back, everybody. So if you're just tuning in, that's weird. But we just finished going through the entire story of how Justice League Mortal was going to go down from beginning to end. But like we said, this movie didn't actually come out. But it's not the same as every like development hell that we've gone through. Like so many of the films that we would consider being in actual development hell, like they get delayed over and over and over again. Like these are cycles that last years, if not decades in some cases. This all fell apart within like a calendar year, pretty much. Can you guess why?
Writer's strike.
That is a big part of it.
Is it?
100%. Okay. Yep. Yeah. In fact, there
2008.
There are two big reasons, and one maybe specious, but we'll call it a sub reason that this movie fell apart. And the first big one is, first and foremost, the 2007-2008 writer's strike.
My second guess is Spider Infestation. It was being filmed in Australia, right?
It was being filmed in Australia, but we'll get to that.
Fuck. I wish you wouldn't.
So we've never really talked in depth about the writer's strike itself on here, so I wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about that. Partially because it's relevant, and partially because maybe I'm planting a seed for something I want to talk about in season 3. Who knows? You don't know. Maybe I don't know.
That writer's strike was abysmal, but
it was rough.
Please go on.
It was rough. We got some cool shit out of it. Like,
where?
I mean, there would be no Dr. Horrible sing-along blog without it.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
And the entirety of everything that Conan O'Brien did during that time.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. We got those two things.
Yeah, we got those two things. I'll take those two things. But negotiations between the Writers Guild of America, or WGA, and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, or AMPTP, I hate that initialism so goddamn much, fell through shortly after their contract expired on Halloween of 2007.
Nukie.
Sorry. So the three chief issues that the WGA members wanted addressed and changed were: 1, an increase in share of DVD residuals. Writers at that point had been getting 0.3% of the first $1 million of gross sales on DVDs, and 0.36% after that first million. They wanted this raised to 0.6%. These are old-ass figures that were carried over from the days of VHS, because that was the initial agreement on VHS tape residuals. However, at that point of time, VHS tapes were priced between $40 and $100.
Yeah.
So they were getting a pretty decent chunk of change out of that. Not so much after all that time, because VHSs got relatively cheap, and DVDs never started off that expensive, to my knowledge.
Unless you're looking for Nukie on VHS, which I definitely don't do every single day.
Fucking damn it. And what's that going for, Jake?
I'm currently watching 2 that are hovering around 70.
I'm so mad.
There is a unopened, unused rental specific version that's about 2,000.
2,000!
Yeah.
Holy shit. Oh my god. Listen to our Mac and Me episode to hear about Nukie and VHS pricing.
Joe
Holy
agreed
cow.
that if I ever find it on VHS, we'll do an episode on it.
Yep. I said,
lucky for him, I'm poor.
Thank fuck. This is the one time I've ever been happy about that. Oh god. So it seems like a no-brainer that you would want this to be increased.
Yeah.
Obviously, the AMPTP wanted to keep it the same because, in their eyes, that's all resources that go toward other things. not like there's a ton of fucking money in the movie industry going around. They didn't have a little bit more they could possibly spare for their writers. But in a truly, in my eyes, bizarre move, some of the WGA leadership attempted to jettison this provision in a last-ditch effort to avoid the strike, which actively pissed off a lot of the membership. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure they did end up just ignoring this provision by the end of the strike. The second big item, and possibly the biggest item, was residuals for new media, specifically streaming, on-demand, internet programming, downloads, smartphone programming, all that jazz. There was absolutely nothing governing this in 2007, and the vast majority of writers saw the writing on the wall that streaming was going to eventually supplant physical media as the main way that people consume media.
That was shortly after Netflix kind of became a thing, right?
Netflix was a thing, but it was mostly still a mail-order DVD service at that point.
Yeah, wrap your head around that, Gen Z.
Yeah, if you can remember that part. I had one of those subscriptions. Like when I was in college, I would get DVDs mailed to me occasionally. And once or twice, they were just paper inside the DVD shell, and I was so mad. I hated when that happened. Ugh, fucking thieves. I also had that happen with Redboxes a couple of times.
See, I never had that happen with Redbox, but I also hated Redbox.
I didn't like Redbox, but I used it a lot. For like a while, anyway.
Sure.
Then I forgot to return my copy of Get Out, so now I just have that.
Belinda has a couple of Redbox DVDs that are
they charge you like
the most random. Yeah,
they charge you like $50 if you forget.
Yeah,
if you forget that, but
it's pretty expensive.
But you can keep it at that point. I'm not gonna keep charging you for it.
I guess.
Yeah, I did. I'd like to get a better copy of Get Out though. Anyway. So writers wanted to get something in line with what the Directors Guild of America had gotten for streaming and new media, which was 1.2% of distributors' gross receipts for rentals and between 0.65 and 0.7% of general gross receipts for downloads. And then for streaming, it was going to be 2% of gross receipts after the initial 17 days. I don't know enough about like the finance to like explain how any of that works or how any of that's a significant amount. Just trust me that it's what they wanted. It's better than what they had, which at this point was nothing. So again, this was largely seen as the biggest issue that writers wanted to have addressed in the course of this strike. Howard Gould, on the importance of this issue, said, "Soon, when computers and your TV are connected, that's how we're all going to watch, okay? Those residuals are going to go from what they are towards zero if we don't make a stand now. This is such a big issue that if they see us roll over on this without making a stand, 3 years from now, they're going to be back for something else. I might have been the most moderate one up here when we started, but I sat there in that room the first day, and they read us those 32 pages of rollbacks, and what they wanted us to hear was, if you don't give us what we want on the important thing, we're going to come after you for all those other things. But what I heard was, if we give them that thing, they'll still come after us for those other things. And in 3 years, it'll be, we want to revamp the whole residual system. And in another 3 years, it'll be, you know what? We don't really want to fund the health fund the way we have been. And then it'll be pension, and then it'll be credit determination. And there just is that time when everybody has to see, this is one where we just got to stand our ground."
Unions.
Unions, right? It's amazing.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty helpful. Everyone should have one. I wish I had a union. We could really use one right now. Anyway. So they did stand firm on this, like getting some kind of residuals and some kind of guaranteed representation in writers' rooms for streamed programming was a non-negotiable point. Like that had to be addressed.
I mean, he called it.
He did call. Gould 100% called it. And as he said, he was one of the more moderate members of the WGA. He was skeptical for a good while that this was going to be a big deal. And then even he was like, "No, you know what? I was wrong about that. I was wrong. I was wrong to be moderate on this particular issue. We need to stand our ground on this." And he's right. The third thing they wanted was jurisdiction and in reality and animation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so they wanted to get recognition for the work that writers still had to do to punch up unscripted reality TV shows. The WGA asserted that the process of creating interesting scenarios, culling raw material, and shaping it into a narrative with conflict, character arc, and storyline constitutes writing, and that it should fall under its contract. Which,
are you writing?
Fair.
Then yes.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair thing to ask for, because we all know reality TV is not actually reality. It's stupid to assert that it actually is. Somebody is crafting that, whether it's in pre-production, post-production, or mid-production. Who fucking knows? And again, this is also an attempt to get WGA representation in animated features. The vast majority of them were not WGA represented. In fact, animation has long been the jurisdiction of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, or IATSE, specifically Local 839, aka the Animation Guild.
I did not know that.
Yes, that's you'll actually the past couple of years. There's been a whole lot of talk on social media about trying to get animators and animation writers a fair contract, and a lot of that was in support of IATSE, because animators tend to get the short end of the stick a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Especially in the streaming age, as we keep seeing Netflix in particular and Warner Brothers Discovery as of late, just throwing animation right down the drain.
God, I didn't even think about that. I didn't realize they weren't a part of the Writers Guild.
No.
So they don't have the same kind of like union to back them as they're being screwed.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's interesting. Yeah, because like they do have IATSE to back them, but apparently that doesn't get you far enough. Or maybe there's something else that I'm missing there. Again, I did not look into that particular angle. The WGA asserted that the vast majority of animated features are written by at least one WGA member. And outside of features, at this particular time, the only real shows, the only cartoon shows that were active at the time that this would have impacted would have been The Simpsons, Family Guy, American Dad, and King of the Hill. All the big Fox shows at that point. Huh. And ultimately, this issue was also dropped. They did not end up getting what they wanted from the PTP out of the strike. So after the official vote, the strike went into effect at 12:01 a.m. on November 5th, 2007. According to Armie Hammer, the last 2 hours before the strike were just Miller, the available cast of Justice League Mortal, and the writers just sitting down together and throwing every idea they had at the wall and just writing it all down, because they knew as soon as that clock hit, they couldn't fucking touch it. They couldn't do anything else. So they did this ridiculous sprint and ended up with like a 200-page script.
Oh, because anything that's written down they can use.
Anything that's written down they could use. Yeah, because remember, there was still some stuff that went through production. There were still things that were being made. Just you couldn't write anything. Or if you were standing in solidarity with the Writers Guild, you shut down your productions. But in this case, they wanted to try and soldier forth. They were already having a hard enough time filming this in Australia, which I'll touch on more shortly. The spiders are just fucking everywhere, and they're huge. Also, the tornadoes catch fire. It's a terrible place. Anyway, despite the various signs of progress, the strike was not resolved until February 12th, 2008, when 92.5% of WGA members voted to end it. And then on February 26th, 93.6% of WGA members voted to approve a new 3-year contract with that included around 3.5% of increased compensation. So they did get something.
Yeah.
And especially they got the streaming stuff that they wanted, because without this happening, we wouldn't have the guild-associated writers crafting just fantastic content across so many different streaming platforms.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, the boom of Netflix original series that we've enjoyed through like the late aughts and the 2010s wouldn't look anything like this.
I've seen web series in the early days. They were garbage.
Yeah, basically.
Sometimes fun garbage, but garbage.
Sometimes fun garbage. There was some fun trash out there, and sometimes you like to roll around in some fun trash. That's fine. There's no judgment for rolling around in trash like a raccoon.
They look like they're having fun.
And they're having a good time. And they get to eat a little bit. They get some snacks. Yeah. What was I talking about?
I think after all that union talk, we need to have a moment of dumb.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I needed to reset my brain with some stupid.
Did you watch any of the movies? I'm sure you've watched some of the movies that came out during the strike, but
oh god, I'm sure I have. I can't pinpoint them in my brain currently.
The two that come to mind are the first Wolverine movie.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh god,
that
I saw
wrecked.
that.
And
oh, Jesus Christ,
Quantum of Solace, which I am a bit of an apologist for. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is.
I have not seen Quantum of Solace yet.
It's a downer.
I'm fine with it being a downer. That's, if I'm not mistaken, aren't most of the Daniel Craig James Bond's downers?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
But
make me sad, Daniel.
That one I don't think is as bad as people. I think it followed Casino Royale, which people really
Casino
liked.
Royale was excellent.
Yeah. But no, it's a really interesting era of film.
Yeah.
Because there are moments that, they had already written. We're like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is a cool moment in this film. Why is it garbage all around this moment? Oh, there was a writer's strike.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to look into, like more films that were like directly impacted or changed because of that strike.
Fun topic.
Might be a thing. Might be a thing to look into. Yeah. We'll take a look at season 3. We'll see what room we have.
Yeah, we don't have the entire season already.
Yeah, no. Why would we have that already planned? So this next problem, I'm going to. I like to call this: how many Australians is enough Australians?
I don't know. Are you? Never mind.
So Miller, being an Australian filmmaker, really wanted Mortal to be filmed in Australia, and the production was slated to begin at Fox Studios Australia in Sydney. He wanted to do this for a number of reasons, particularly because there were a ton of visual effects jobs that were lost after Happy Feet, because there wasn't another production lined up afterward for them to continue on to. So the plan for this really was for these folks to do Justice League Mortal and then stick around and work on Happy Feet 2.
Okay, yeah.
While 4 of the major actors, 3 of the main cast, as we went over in the beginning of this episode, and the majority, if not entirety, of the production crew were Australian, the Screen Producers Association of Australia, A, did not consider the production to be Australian enough, and B, thought that the project was irresponsibly expensive. So one of the reasons they wanted to film in Australia, aside from bringing jobs to Australia and Miller himself being Australian, was that there was a 40% tax rebate for films who film the majority of their work in Australia and meet a certain threshold of Australians on the crew and whatnot. Miller thought that they had matched those things, but there were some producers who were proposing limiting the 40% tax rebate to projects with budgets of $30 million or lower. That's a tenth of the budget of this particular film. This would have been an absolute deal breaker, since the conversion rate between US dollars and Australian dollars at this point had changed significantly. So during the time of Happy Feet, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 60 cents US to $1 Australian. And at the time of this project, it was 97 cents US to $1 Australian. The exchange rate was almost negligibly equal.
Right.
So their American dollars were not going to go nearly as far.
Yeah.
Miller thought this was absolute madness and would only cause the Australian film industry to stagnate. Quote, "Any form of capping basically means the Australian film industry is going to be restricted to what it's been for almost 2 decades, a cottage industry making films that, very sadly, Australian audiences seem reluctant to see, with some wonderful exceptions, let alone films that get any exposure overseas. The rebate is not a windfall, it's not welfare, it's not a handout. It's trying to seduce investment into the country, which has a multiplier effect through the economy over 2 to 3 years, taxed at every level. And only at the end of that is there a rebate."
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like a reasonable thing to do, especially considering what that would mean for the Australian film industry. It means, in this case, multiple gigantic high-profile projects that would have the acclaim of one of the best-known directors on the face of the planet, and already Oscar buzz, because the prequel of one of those films was already an Oscar winner.
And lest we forget that he directed Babe.
Also, I thought he produced Babe.
I thought he directed Babe and produced Babe, Pig in the Big City.
That might be it.
Stupid sentence I just said.
It is, but it's all real. So the Australian government assembled a board of individuals that Miller believed knew nothing about the film industry to vote on this rebate measure. Sure enough, the vote did not turn out favorably for the production, and Warner Brothers began eyeing Vancouver as an alternate filming site. In the end, the production seems to have been shut down for good before anyone got the chance to film a goddamn thing, not even really surviving until the end of the writer's strike. According to Jay Baruchel, the call went out January 7th, 2008. He says that he was in Sydney at the time with some of the cast, but that very sadly, DJ Catrona had actually been in LA still and didn't get the call until the exact moment his ride was picking him up from his hotel to take him to the airport to come to Sydney. So he's literally standing there and a car rolls up and he's like on the phone and the guy says, "Hey, I'm here to pick you up." He goes, "No, you're not, man. I'm not going anywhere." It's like, I'm pretty sure I am here for you. He goes, "No, I just got the call. My heart's broken. I can't do this." And then he went back into his apartment and just, that was that. They made Superman cry.
I actually got those things reversed. I want to say he did produce Babe. He directed Babe, Pig in the Big City.
Really?
Yeah, sure did.
Interesting. I wonder if there are any Easter eggs of that in Mad Max Fury Road.
If you listen really, really intently, you can hear a pig squealing in the background.
That's not just Australia?
That's just the ambiance of Australia. 5.0 out of 10, Pig in the Big City.
Okay, not bad.
It's bad.
It's for IMDb, yeah, that's pretty bad. They so consistently rate things at like 6.9 or like 7.4 or whatever. I don't know what's happening on that website. So the very last thing, which again I said is kind of a sub reason that this fell through. I'd like to call this section "Who's Afraid of the Big Black Bat?"
Okay, fine.
So Collider cites that the success of The Dark Knight was one of the factors that officially buried Justice League Mortal. The thing that throws me about that is that the production for this ended at the beginning of the year, and The Dark Knight didn't come out until July 18th, 2008.
Yeah.
So a little specious of an argument, I think.
Sure, yeah.
It's a little, it's kind of a stretch. Adam Brody had joked that Warner Brothers was just afraid of having multiple Batmen in play, which, I mean, they may have been onto something at the time, but because there actually was some I maybe not go so far as to say displeasure from the Nolan camp. But Christian Bale had been quoted saying like it'd probably be better for them to wait until after Batman 3 for them to do something like this. Especially since, there was no attempt to bring Christian Bale onto this. I don't think he had any interest in doing something like this.
Imagine.
It wouldn't have. I don't think it would have worked tonally for that Batman to be palling around with demigods and shit. It's just,
it would have been awful.
Yeah.
I do remember reading an interview after Batman Begins where Christian Bale was really excited to explore the more day-to-day life of Batman.
You wanted to see Batman poop.
He wanted to see Batman poop.
Yeah, I'll never forget that.
He got much less day-to-day in Dark Knight, which is fine.
Yes. Honestly, for the best.
We all know Batman poops.
Everybody poops, Batman. It's fine. We know you're a big boy. He's just proud of his toilet.
That's
probably
a very nice toilet.
It's a very good toilet. Billionaires have to be happy about something, man. I don't know. They all seem miserable and shitty. Anyway, so The Dark Knight, as we all know, massive fucking success. 94% audience score and tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes. Very rare to see them that high and equal. 9.0 out of 10 on IMDb. Over $1 billion earned. Like, it's stupid good. If this film had any impact on Justice League Mortal, I think it's likely that it just cemented the popularity of grounded, dark superhero films, which may have just destroyed any slim chance there was of reviving a comic book faithful, bombastic, and frankly kind of goofy and campy approach that Mortal would have been taking.
Yeah.
But then what?
I assume it shut down and that was it?
No, yeah, basically.
Oh, okay.
But, anticlimax.
Oh.
No, so there are a lot of little bits and pieces of this movie that kind of like worked their way into other projects.
Okay.
Like if you look at future DC projects in particular, Man of Steel, Superman snaps Zod's neck. Everyone got really fucking pissed off about it.
This is because he wouldn't do that.
He wouldn't do that, and B, that entire fight was just a Dragon Ball Z movie. Like that, like Man of Steel sucks. I'm sorry.
It's yeah. You said it.
I did. Justice League. The Whedon cut largely features the Flash fanboying over all the other superheroes. Both the Snyder cut and the Whedon cut feature Superman fighting the rest of the Justice League and feature the Flash being the solution to a major problem, particularly his speed being the solution to a major problem. Mm-hmm. While he's not sacrificing himself to save the entire planet, he is using his speed to specifically trigger the resurrection of Superman.
Neat.
Yeah. I hate that I watched both of those films back to back.
You're a madman.
I'm never doing it again. Also, Snyder cut. Hey, Martian Manhunter's here.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, they shoehorn him in. It has no fucking bearing on anything that happens. He's just there suddenly.
Did I watch that?
I feel like you did watch that eventually, but it's fine that you don't remember. It's not important. Possibly the most pertinent parallel is the appearance of Maxwell Lord as a main villain, which we got in Wonder Woman 1984, which I did watch for this. That movie is also terrible. Just everything drags on way too long. The pacing is awful. The writing is god awful. The dialogue is
Kristen Wiig's a kitty cat.
Kristen Wiig's a kitty cat. That felt a little bit like ham-fisted.
It was fine.
It was, I think, like, the character itself was fine. The, like, realization moment where she points out she wants to be an apex predator and doesn't want to be like anyone else was, she, like, barrels down the camera was, I think, a bit ham-fisted. But
the entire movie was very ham-fisted.
It was. The fucking lasso is a fucking Deus Ex Machina, which also is a carryover from fucking Mortal, because there was a bit of that going on throughout the script. I don't think that she grappled any fucking lightning bolts in Justice League Mortal, but she definitely did in Wonder Woman 1984.
They did our boy Pedro Pascal dirty.
They did Pedro Pascal dirty. Absolutely. It's a bizarre take on the character, and a lot of what he's doing is like kind of hard to track. His motivations are like shifting wildly. His performance is like delightfully unhinged, which like fine, I'll take that. But like the writing and the rationale behind what he's doing is just nonsense.
My viewing of Pedro Pascal was, unbeknownst to me, an episode of Buffy, but
neat.
Yeah, The Mandalorian and then Wonder Woman. So it was a little bit of whiplash.
So for me it was Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. Then The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett. That table read of that episode of Community that got done during the pandemic. And then Wonder Woman, 1984.
You didn't watch him with Nick Cage?
I did not. I have not seen...
it's delightful.
I want to see the...
Unbearable
Weight of Massive Talent, I think it's called.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I want to see that very badly. I keep seeing that one gif of just like Nick Cage looking so frustrated and concerned, and Pedro Pascal looking deranged.
I'm pretty sure he's fucked up on something in that scene.
He has to be, right? But I want to see that very badly.
Skip Wonder Woman 1982.
Yeah, don't see Wonder Woman 1984. It's not good. Also, just the whole Steve Trevor coming back in another dude's body and having sex with Wonder Woman, even though the other guy's still kind of in there, and even though he's not driving the body, is just all kinds of fucked up. Yeah. One of the most heartbreaking things about this production that didn't come to be, though, something I learned about Jay Baruchel is that he has wanted to be a director since he was 9 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't actually want to be an actor. Like he's
fine.
Yeah, I think he's a fun actor. He does particularly well in comedies.
Yeah.
Directing's his passion. And he has gotten to direct some stuff in recent years. He has a horror movie that's on Shudder, the title of which I can't remember, and he directed the sequel to Goon, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, the horror movie in particular sounds really interesting. If you don't like hockey, I imagine you have no reason to watch Goon or its sequel. Though Sean William Scott's surprisingly good in those movies, so it's worth checking out, I'd say.
Sports are fun, I hear.
Yeah, sure. I like hockey, and that's about it. But he was so happy to be working for someone the caliber of George Miller in particular.
Sure, yeah.
Part of the problem with this script, though, is that Maxwell Lord's only in like about 12 scenes altogether. So he was told that he was going to be sent home early. Like, he wasn't going to be around for the entire production.
Yeah.
He was kind of bummed out about that. So he was talking to Miller at some point and was just like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to stick around to see the rest of the production. And Miller was like, oh, no. No, you're not going anywhere. No, first off, I want to keep everybody together. I don't want to break up the band. Like, in his eyes, like the cast and crew were like a repertory crew. So he wanted to keep everyone there for the duration as much as possible.
Which I love. I don't know how they would. Maybe that's why the budget was so big.
Yeah. I mean, if you just get like a bunch of Jamie Lee Curtises, they'll just do it.
Yeah,
right. She famously just like doesn't leave set, doesn't go to her trailer, doesn't fuck off anywhere. She just watches everyone else act the entire time.
Her reasoning being that's how you get sucked into a production.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've done that before where I'm like, I'm not needed on set today. I show up, and I'm just a pair of hands.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. You're going to get jobs.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It makes a world of sense. But the other reason he didn't want him to leave is because he wanted Baruchel to shadow him.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Specifically,
really good for him.
He specifically told him, I want you to spend the rest of this production shadowing me so you see what this kind of production is like. And so Baruchel thinks like, oh man, my agents are going to be so upset with me if I'm not working, if I'm not acting.
Yeah.
But he called his agents and they're like, are you fucking kidding me? Do whatever the fuck you have to do to stay in Australia. Pay for it yourself if you have to. This is huge. It's George fucking Miller. Yeah. Please learn from him. And he didn't get the shot.
God, that sucks.
That is when awful. He talks about it, it's like the pain, the heartbreak in that is like palpable. It's so like I feel so bad for him. It's like I've always enjoyed his work, but like if he'd had that opportunity to shadow George Miller on this set and like see what it's like to carry this kind of production through, I would have been wild.
It's too bad he didn't get to do that on a later George Miller production.
Yeah.
Although I don't think he would have had fun on Fury Road.
Maybe not.
Interesting. Probably learned a lot.
That fair. I think that's a fair way to describe it.
Changed him as a man, but
yeah,
interesting.
Speaking of that,
great.
So I'm not going to go super in depth to Fury Road right now. If you've seen Mad Max Fury Road, you know it's a fucking masterpiece. Look at it. So he got to put his work back into focusing on this because I don't think he had another project between Mortal and this, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't believe so.
So he was able to actually bring back the vast majority of the same crew to produce that film, and he included roles for both Hugh Keays-Byrne, who, as we mentioned, is a Morton Joe, and Megan Gale actually was brought in for this as well. She played a character named the Valkyrie.
I'll have to look it up later.
The biggest lesson that Miller took from Justice League Mortal, though, is that it does not serve a production to reveal too much about it too early. Henceforth, Fury Road and his most recent film, 3,000 Years of Longing, Miller limited how much he actually revealed about the productions outside of basic casting and trailers. As his experience with Mortal shows, it can all just go away regardless of how much concept art you share.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's been a general movement more towards that, especially with high-profile movies. Like J.J. Abrams won't let like a fart come out before the movie.
Which, honestly, maybe he in particular should.
He could let a fart out.
He could probably let a fart out here and there, and like maybe gauge some response to that fart.
Oh, he did Happy Feet too.
Oh, right, I forgot about Happy Feet 2. He did do Happy Feet 2. I even talked about Happy Feet 2. Jesus. So that's Justice League Mortal, a bizarre, campy, goofy, comic book accurate superhero romp that will never see the light of day.
I don't think it would have done well at the time.
No, I don't think so either. Especially with how hard The Dark Knight like floored everybody.
Yeah.
Like for that to compete with, or for Justice League Mortal to have to compete with that in the same year, I don't think it would have worked.
I also don't think that audiences wanted that kind of campiness out of their superheroes at the time.
Yeah, I mean, would you describe Iron Man as campy?
I would say it has the same kind of like summer fun vibe that you would expect out of us, but not campy, no.
I think that's a fair assessment, and I think that's probably part of the reason why it was such a hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way you describe the script to me sounds more in line with like a late 90s, early 2000s kind of action superhero movie.
I do get a kind of like Jessica Alba Fantastic 4E kind of vibe from the flow of this script.
Yeah.
But alas, is lost to the sands of time.
Yeah, well, even just thinking about the James Bond films that were coming out around that time, Casino Royale carried over some of the goofiness of the Brosnan films, almost like it needed that as a kind of like a runway.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Batman Begins, where it had a little bit of the campy comic bookiness, even if it's just in the dialogue. Before it went into Quantum of Solace was dark as hell.
Dark Knight was dark as hell.
Dark Knight was dark as hell. And I think that was, I may be reading too much into it, but I feel like that's where we were as a country at that time.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then, I mean, even just looking at the costumes, if Superman had showed up in that doopy little diaper, there's no way that would have. It's goofier than the one we got in Superman Returns.
It is goofier than what we got in Superman Returns. Oh, actually, speaking of Superman, I almost forgot, in terms of like things carrying over into more recent projects, DJ Catrona has reappeared in a DC property. He's in the Shazam movies.
Which one was he?
I don't know. I haven't seen either of them. I just know he's in there.
The first one was fine. Okay, cool. Good for him.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't remember. Yeah, that was... you sure did your research.
I was worried that this was going to be like a lot of nothing, because I thought it was. When I was first digging into it, it seemed like pretty cut and dry. Like, oh, the writer's strike killed this movie. Mm-hmm. But then I kept digging. I kept finding little tidbits, a little bit more here and there. It's like, I knew I wanted to dig more into the writer's strike itself, but then like finding those details about the production, finding those interviews with Armie Hammer and Jay Baruchel and Adam Brody. Hearing George Miller talk about the issues with the Australian government and the tax rebates and all that, it's more fertile ground than I was expecting.
I wonder where the Australian film industry is right now. Like, if they kind of saw the error of their ways.
That would have been a good thing to follow up on. I did not look into it.
I mean, I'm assuming he shot Fury Road there.
He definitely shot Fury Road there. I'm like, yeah, because again, the vast majority, if not the entire production crew, was Australian for that.
But if I'm basing tax breaks purely on Pittsburgh, that shit can change in like a couple of years.
It can, yeah. The Pennsylvania film tax credit is just like evaporated.
Yeah,
essentially.
There was a minute where there was a bunch of films being made in Pittsburgh, and then they didn't re-up or whatever, and nothing. And the pandemic.
If I remember correctly, the state legislature had been taken over by a Republican majority, and they shot down renewing it. If I remember correctly,
I think you're correct.
I'm pretty sure I remember correctly. Yeah,
it's fine. We didn't need those jobs.
Yeah. Right.
Cool. Hey, you did it.
You bring up an interesting point there, though, about needing those jobs.
Yeah.
So the 2007-2008 writers' strike lasted for 100 days.
Okay.
It cost the LA economy about $3 billion.
Shit.
Guess what expires in May?
I'm gonna go vomit. Would it be the contracts that they signed in 2008?
Well, no, those have expired. They go in like 3 years increments.
Okay. So the most recent ones
are expiring. because the last one they signed was like in the middle of COVID or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's some concern. You may notice on various social media platforms that some writers, if you follow them, may have changed their avatars to say, I support or I stand with the WGA. And that's because the WGA is yet again fighting with the AMPTP for proper representation in residuals, particularly when it comes to streaming, and particularly whenever it comes to guaranteeing jobs in TV shows. I don't know if you've noticed, but the number of original series that have been in development and the lengths of those series have been dwindling.
Is that because they're preparing? The big companies are preparing for a strike, or
no? I think that's just the trends in the industry. Like, just fewer shows are being greenlit. Fewer episodes are being allocated per season.
Mm-hmm.
Fewer writers are being put into those writers' rooms for those episodes, and thus the compensation that they're getting is far from what it should be, based on the work that they typically do and that they actually do.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
You know what's another wrinkle though?
What's that?
The contracts for the Directors Guild and the Screen Actors Guild also expire this summer.
Great.
So there may be a very fraught entertainment year ahead of us.
I remember the first year of the pandemic when a bunch of movies were either being held back or paused during production,
or thrown onto like Amazon or whatever for $20.
Yeah, that was an awful year for film.
Is bad.
I wonder if that's gonna be
2023, 2024.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, who knows? It depends on how long they actually hold out on these things.
Yeah.
Or hey, negotiations could just go well, and then we could avert all of this altogether.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
It's almost like the writing on a story is really important.
Honestly, yeah.
I might be a little biased.
I mean, same, but so would a lot of people, considering what it feels like to watch something that's very poorly written.
It's almost like our entire podcast is based around that.
How about that?
Oh boy. Hey, are you done hurting me?
Yeah, I'm done hurting you. Yeah, I'm done. Yeah. Sorry. I don't mean to hurt you with these things, but like there's no getting around the fact that like, hey, we happen to be covering this at a surprisingly timely moment. I didn't even realize until I was doing
thing you were telling me about.
I didn't even realize it until today. I messaged Jack and said, "Hey, I have something I have to tack on to the end of the episode. You'll see." Just
it's very relevant.
It's extremely relevant. I didn't realize it was going to be that relevant. So thanks, Raphael, for recommending that we cover this.
Yeah, when he recommended it, I much like you thought there wasn't a whole lot to cover.
Turns out
it was pretty interesting. It's sad. I think it still would have bombed, but
I do think it still would have bombed. But
yeah. I'm glad that we can't count a certain Armie Hammer among our Batman.
Yeah, that's kind of a relief, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm a huge Batman fan, so there's all these posters of like all of the live action Batman, and I'm glad I don't have to see him on that.
It's just one of those things where it's like thank you for being a great Batman, not you.
Yeah, not you.
No,
that distinction goes to George Clooney. He's fully aware of it.
You know what? I will thank him for owning how bad that was. He knows what he did.
God, what a trip it would be if he popped up in the multiverse somewhere.
Oh my God, I would lose my shit. He gets the fucking redemption moment.
I don't even know what that would look like. Hey, you know what? Give it to Alicia.
If you're gonna give anyone a redemption moment in those fucking movies, Alicia Silverstone, absolutely give it to her. She got treated like absolute fucking dog shit. Now I'm just thinking about the fact that Ahmed Best is a Jedi, and it makes me so happy.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to that episode yet.
I haven't yet either, but like it's everywhere. Everyone fucking knows.
Yeah.
It's just he got treated like such bullshit for just being Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. We had just talked about Jake Lloyd in our Razzie episode.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he's doing okay.
I hope he's doing okay.
I would love to see him get his redemption moment.
100%, yes. I would love that. Mostly, I just want him to be okay.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Mind if I selfishly plug my upcoming?
I was hoping you would. Yes, please, please plug this. This is very cool.
So I've been working on this comic book called The Eyes of the Needle.
Yes.
Short 1-issue comic. Me and Benjamin Coons, who drew it, frankly did the majority of the work.
You've shown me some of this. He does amazing artwork. Like
it's really cool.
It's gorgeous.
Really, really cool. It's. I was already excited based upon the art he showed me, but he did like a different style than he usually does.
Oh,
for this comic book, it's a kind of cosmic horror set around a prison, which in universe is nicknamed the Needle, for its shape.
Neat.
So we did a small printing. We're giving away this first printing of it.
Oh, wow.
This first run. And then it will be released online again for free. And then I think if we are lucky enough to get to a second printing, we'll probably charge a little bit for that because it's a little pricey.
Yeah, it costs a good bit to get that stuff made.
Yeah,
and
we are not a massive publisher.
No.
So I would love it for everyone to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find?
When it is eventually online, it will be on. Right now, it's going to be only on Global Comics with an X.
Okay.
I'm probably going to load it onto some other ones, but yeah, for now, that's where it'll be.
Hell yeah!
And if you do want a hard copy of it, you can email me at the DeRazzled email because I can't remember mine right now.
I think yours is jack.creative@gmail.com, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
I think that's one of them that I know you use for stuff.
I have like 8 emails.
That's true. DeRazzledpodcast@gmail.com. You can always send a message for that. Put Jack's comic in the subject line, and we'll know what you're talking about.
jackculbertson.creative@gmail.com.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, cool.
Hell yeah. So yeah, check that out. I can't wait to see the finished product.
Me too.
And thank you for checking us out here tonight and joining us for this little bit of development hell here. If you liked what you heard, please again rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, Good Pods, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please help us get into more people's ears. We want to expand our listenership so badly.
Got a little tongue in there.
Oh God. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do that on Facebook at DeRazzled Podcast, on TikTok and Instagram at DeRazzled_podcast, and Twitter at DeRazzled Pod. And as we mentioned, you can email us at DeRazzledPodcast@gmail.com if you want information about Jack's comic, or if you want to suggest stuff that you want to see covered in future seasons. So, yeah, please and thank you.
Great. And come back next time because, we're sure.
We're always sure to razzle dazzle you.